British Council operates in 110 countries in the world. We call this cultural relations. Whatever we do it in arts, we do it in education, and we do lots of English work, and we call that, cultural relations. I mean, it's always difficult explaining what cultural relations is, because the moment you say culture, for some of us who've passed through the drama school, we think arts, performance and all that. But for British Council, it means many things. Most importantly, at the center of it, it means generating friends. Friends for who? For the UK. So my responsibility is to generate friends for the UK and what we call overseas. Overseas, in this case, being UK and Botswana and also South Africa, since I'm here. One of the things we're trying to do as an organization is to kind of use what is called multilateral approach in the work that we do. For so many years, we've used bilateral approach, which means UK and one country, but I'm quite grateful that I'm standing here representing British Council in Botswana. The last time that I was in Botswana was 10 years ago, and I think ever since coming back, I think I'm quite impressed with what I've seen. Okay, background. This is the background in terms of skills. So we're all talking about skills and all that. Where my interest lies really around the skills gap. Where are the gaps in terms of skills? So just to give you a global picture. So this was done in 2012, but it's called the Mackenzie Global Institute. So they do lots of research in terms of the global trends for skills and employment and all that. And these are the figures that they actually gave. So they are predicting that in 2020, there will be a shortage of almost 30 to 40 million high skills workers. And out of that, 13% will be required for such workers. And then they actually say again in 2020, 45 million middle-class workers will be demanded. And then they say for low skills, there will be at least demand for 10% and a shortage of 90 to 95 million. So again, looking at these particular statistics, the key question is, where does the problem lie? Is it the lack of employment or the lack of the right candidate to fill up the employment? So I thought I could just draw up those statistics first before actually going into more detail. Quite fascinating for me. I can't imagine how it looks like. Part of me actually say, maybe they are not true. Maybe they are. If they are, what are we doing about it? Moving along, I think in terms of the given circumstances, and here I'm speaking from a global perspective, first as an African and then as an international later on. If you look at Africa, I think despite the fact that we're talking of all these shortages, there are actually quite interesting given circumstances that we do have. One of them is the fact that out of all the continents, arguably, we have a very young population. And the young population, I think, gives us an opportunity. It can also give us threats as well. I think if I look back to South Africa, I think many of you hear about, strikes and protests and all that. In UK, not so long ago, in a developed country, London was burning. Why? Because of the youth. But if you look at England, for example, they don't have quite a young population as we do in Africa. So I think treat it the way you like, young population, an opportunity or a threat. And then growing economies, I think economists predict that everyone wants to be in Africa. It looks like that's the next thing happening in terms of development. So I think take a look at it. I think for me this is definitely an opportunity because they are growing economies. The question is, how flexible are we to pace up with the growth of the economy? Someone was talking earlier on, I think, about the relevance of curriculum, whether the curriculum that we're designing here will still be relevant 4 years later. So I think the challenge that we also do have is the fact that how do we match our skills with growing economies? Currently in South Africa, they're actually saying lack of key skills is a hindrance to development. And for some of you interested in statistics, I think in South Africa there was a projection of a growth rate of about 3.5%. At the moment, we're sitting at 1.6%. Not so good. And then technological advances. We've seen all the Facebook, the Martin Zuckerberg and all the guys, Twitter, everything, cell phone technology in Africa. Those are actually some of the given circumstances that we actually do have. The question is, how do we utilize all these to relate to the issues of the skills gap? And then the other key issue, quite interesting for me here in Africa especially, I just want to find out by show of hands again, How many people are the first professional person in their family? You are the first person who went to university. You are the first person who got a professional job. Just show of hands. First generation professionals. Okay, thank you. Second generation professionals. Okay. Third generation professionals. Okay, interesting. So for me, those are some of the things that I'm looking at in terms of the given circumstances. You realize if you are the first generation professional, you're most likely to be a teacher, a nurse, or one of those traditions. If you're third generation, I think your grandfather, your parents are a bit more flexible. Talking about South Africa, when I look at this particular slide, unemployment rate in South Africa, they're actually saying, and there's this big debate, I think, in South Africa with unions, which one is an official statistics. Other people arguably say, you know what, 25% is what Stats A actually tried to put down so that everyone remains calm. But they say actual figures are almost 35 to 40% of unemployment. And then, according to the South African Institute of Race Relations, this is a bit far, I think 2011 in February, they were actually saying youth unemployment was 51%. And when we're saying youth unemployment in South Africa, anyone from 16 to 35 is a youth. And then they were actually saying out of that, 57% of the unemployed youth are Africans. So the International Race Relations, what they specialize on, they actually do research. And one of the key things, or as part of their framework, is the fact that they look at most of research and actually include race as part of it. I know we don't like to talk about race, but race is here to stay. It's part of our reality. We can use it to analyze things like this. Why South Africa is where it is in terms of skills? Most likely if you speak to politicians and quite a number of people in South Africa, the word operated always come into the play. It's a combination of many things. Some of the things you know, some of the things that we may not know. But the reality is there's a skills gap in South Africa. There are high unemployment rates for young people. And then in response to that, I think it's quite fair for me to actually say the South African government has given skills shortage considerable attention for years. But the reality is skill shortages are very real in South Africa, even up to today. So I think it explains part of the fact that why are we here? How did we get it here? I think it's a responsibility for everyone who is in South Africa, who is in Africa, or wherever you are in your country to actually figure it out. Because one of the challenges, I think, around any particular work that you do in skills gap is we do not understand in the first place what is the problem. I think there's a gentleman there, I think, who mentioned earlier on to actually say, we're saying all these things based on what? If we do not understand the what, we can spend 10 years in the woods. You see, there are two stories that I would like to talk about in South Africa. There's what is called the pre and the post-2009 South Africa. So most of the things that I will talk about are actually related to that. But let me jump slightly back again. So policy developments, if you look at this page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, these things are policy developments in South Africa. 7 policy developments in South Africa linked to skills in the last 10 years. Is it a good or is it a bad thing? So this shows you the amount of work the government is actually trying to do. And when I look at this, I actually say, there is a big problem. Or maybe there's a big solution in one of these 7. Let's hope not everyone get lost in them without actually doing the right thing to solve the challenge. So we have colleges, we have government, we have lobbying bodies, we have sector authorities, we have industry, we have non-governmental organizations like British Council, for example, involved in this. And this is about bringing all the key players in the skills sector to actually start working together. In South Africa, talking about this particular model, what we've done, we've linked 5 colleges as part of the pilot in South Africa. So the first one that I would like to talk about is a college in Eastern Cape, in a town called Uitenhage. I think there are two pronunciations for that name. Hopefully I got it right. This particular college, we linked it with a consortium in the UK. So in the UK, they are linked with a college called Warsaw College and Black County. This particular partnership aims at developing a bridging program to increase the progression of learners from level 2 to level 3 NCV and to support the development of East Cape Midlands Learning Company model. So what we've done, each and every college have now identified with their partner a challenge that they do have, and through that particular partnership, they said, this is the challenge that we have. And then after identifying it, they then say, who do we need on board to solve this particular challenge? And for this particular one, that particular advanced bridging course, one of their challenges that they had as a college is the fact that most of the students or the learners they were getting were not ready for FET colleges. And they realize when they take these learners and they start talking of engineering, for example, they will realize some of the students actually do not have a background or strong background in terms of mathematics. And what they've done, they've developed this particular program to cover mathematics, English, life orientation, and some of the core subjects, especially the practical ones, to actually get them on a 1 month period before they start their course to actually tell them the 101 elements of mathematics that they will be applying in their studies, English, for example, and all that. The only challenge with this particular thing is the fact that for FET colleges in South Africa, you get two types of students. Firstly, you either get someone who's just finished their grade 9, or secondly, you then get someone who's finished grade 12. The key question is, how can you take someone who's finished grade 9 and 12 and put them in the same class and achieve the same results? So these are some of the things that we're challenging this particular college to actually say, what are you doing about that? Because no one blanket covers everyone. The second element is what is called the learning company model. And these guys are working with VW and also are still negotiating with Transnet. So VW, I'm sure we all know what it is. It's a car manufacturing company. Transnet is the guys that are working in the rail industry in South Africa. They do lots of moving of goods. The learning company model is all about making sure students, when they are at college, they are given the responsibility of running a company. And what these students do is there's someone who is responsible for overseeing this particular company, but when a student is given time for an internship or some sort of attachment, they are given a specific role, which could include being a factory manager, which could involve being a workshop manager, and they start doing the job. And one of the key things that is involved in that, it involves the holistic approach where they even manage the budgets for the company. They are supervised, and their responsibility is to make sure the company doesn't run a loss, so they have to advertise, they have to market. This is quite popular, I think, for quite a number of UK institutes, and it's normally popular in the beauty therapy industry, where young students are actually asked to run salons and all that. So this is East Cape Midlands, working with Warsaw College and Black County. One of the challenges, I must say, with the International Skills Partnership that we encountered working with colleges is the fact that the moment you have a South African college partnering with a UK college, they always think they are second best. And we've challenged some of them to actually say, you're not there to learn, you're there to engage and contribute, because even the UK has something to learn from you. So it's not just about South African colleges getting all the information from Warsaw, but it's about them working together as equal partners. So what we do in British Council, we give out grants that we initiate this particular relationships for the colleges to work together. So the second one is a college which is in Vereeniging in Johannesburg, in Gauteng, called Citibank. They work with Harrow College, Dudley, and Belfast Metropolitan College in the UK. So their partnership is looking at lecturer development, employer engagement, and quality assurance in the automotive sector. In terms of progress, what they've done at the moment, they are actually exploring an e-learning platform that they are exploring. This particular platform is actually going to be used in terms of developing the lecturers, so that the lecturers, I think I mentioned earlier on that if you don't address the issue of whether the lecturer is the right person or not, then we're up for a problem. So what they've done, they are looking at an e-learning platform. There's a company called MESITA, it's one of the sector councils. So it's called the Mechanical Engineering and Other Related Services, SETA. There are, I think someone mentioned earlier on, the SETAs are involved in terms of accreditation and quality assurances in South Africa. So this particular SETA, which is also a partner of ours in this project, is actually looking at the quality assurance. So one of the things that we've realized, we are project managers in British Council. I think earlier on I mentioned I'm no specialist of skills. I've just walked through this journey where I've gathered a few things about skills development. And one of the things that we said as project managers, we'll give a college a target and say, what do you want to do? And the college said, we want to develop a curriculum. If I go as a project manager in that college and ask them after 6 months, have you developed the curriculum? And they say yes, I'll put a big tick on my thing. But the question is not about that. The question is how relevant is the curriculum? And this is why we're working with this particular services, with SETA, to check that the curriculum that they are developing or tweaking is relevant. The other element is actually the lecturer development and mentorship of junior lecturers. So they are looking, one, lecturer development of the older guys who are there, and they're also looking at a mentorship for junior programs. And what they've done, they've now signed an agreement with a company called ArcelorMittal. It's a mining and steel company, as well as Imperial Auto, which is, Imperial Auto in South Africa have got one of the best training academies where students are exposed to the current technology in terms of the cars and all that. And what the agreement is with the college is for the students to actually get an opportunity to be part of this particular model. The lecturers are actually going to be part of it as well so that they become industry relevant. In South Africa, if you look at the amount of cars that are produced each and every year, I'm just talking of models, not numbers. Model of cars. And you imagine a young person in a college stuck for 3 and 4 years. It doesn't look good. So this is why these colleges were encouraging to work with industry, so that these young people are not, someone who graduated 4 years ago should definitely not be the same person or graduate with similar things that someone who's going to graduate 4 years from now on. And then the other one, which is Northlink, is working with a college called Gwent and Ileandro. These are in Wales. These are quite advanced colleges in the UK in terms of looking at greening and renewable energy. I think this is a relevant topic for most of us. In South Africa, we must say, despite all the talk about green energy, if we look, if I can check with some of your institutes, how many institutes have got renewable energy curriculum here? Okay, which university? Okay, that's Canada, US, okay? Any other institute? Okay, so you can see, this is a very relevant topic. We've spoken about greening, we've spoken about our climate and all that, but these are some of the tasks that we are faced as institutions. How do we catch up? 20 years or so ago, we all thought, issues of climate and all that was a fallacy, some conspiracy and all that. But it's a reality. We now have to talk of green energy and all that. But how do we do it? Do we wait for how many years to create the curriculum? Most of the people working in this industry have never learned about it. There are people applying what they've learned to make it relevant in terms of technology and renewable energy. So this is a very relevant project in South Africa. What they are working on, they've now identified curriculum changes, tweaks, and they've started working on solar heating, solar volcanic, and renewable energy awareness. And I know for these guys, they are working with plumbers. They're actually working with plumbers to actually make sure they're at least aware in terms of renewable energy. What sort of things can they start learning before they even leave college? And they're targeting level 4 students to say they need to be aware. I think it would be a pity to let any student working in some of these areas leave college without at least having done some sort of course or anything that speak about renewable energy. And then there's also the establishment of a renewable energy center of excellence, and they are working with a company called Kaya Gas and the Germans, German Technical Corporation, and Tech Africa. So basically what they are trying to do, they are trying to work with this particular company to provide up-to-date and relevant technologies that the student can use, so that when they are doing their training and learning, they actually are using the relevant technologies. I hope I'm not boring everyone. I'm almost there. Please bear with me. And then the next one is Orbit. This particular college is in a town called Standerton in Mpumalanga. The project aims at curriculum design, lecturer development. So if you remember earlier when I mentioned about Citibank, this is almost a photocopy, and they've got the same partners as well in the UK. And they've now made progress in developing a curriculum in the automotive sector. And this is involving, again, MESITA, that particular sector training authority, and they are looking at quality assurance. And then they're also looking at learner and lecturer development and also placement. And Ford is actually working with them. And Ford, what is actually doing, they provide the up-to-date cars to the college for free so that the student can start working on them. So besides the cars, they also provide quite lots of workshop equipment to the colleges. The last one is Hertzbande, which is working with a college called Highbury and North Hertfordshire College, and they are looking at developing an IC system. I think the IT system that they've established called Data Warehouse, basically what it's meant to do is for improved teaching and learning. One of the challenges about monitoring teaching and learning is we do not have the relevant data. The question is, whatever decisions we make, what are they based on? Are they based on assumptions? Are they based on our personal opinions? And what this particular system does, it gathers lots of data. It gathers things like your student attendance, it gathers your lecturer attendance, it gathers feedback that the student can give in terms of the teaching and learning. So when you then look at this particular data, it's actually readily available. And they're working with partners in the UK and also a South African company called Seaways to actually establish that system. And then the platform will be used across the board in the college to improve teaching and learning. And what we've said to them, we said it's too broad, I think, working on this particular project. Can you identify one area where we're going to apply it? And they will be applying it in the automobile sector. All right, so that's what the International Skills Partnership. I mean, for me, working in British Council and exploring this particular field, there's still lots of things that I'm interested in and things that I would like to know more about. And what we have within the council at the moment, we've got quite a number of seminar series that do happen where people from around the world actually come together, mostly in London, to actually explore certain things. And for some of you who might be interested, I think in the UK and some of the work that we do actually have these series that do happen. We normally tailor-make them according to the attendance that will be coming. So you can be exploring, for example, the technical and vocational model, especially the German model. It seems to be quite popular. In terms of conference, as Nobandu mentioned, we actually have a conference starting tomorrow in Morocco called Bringing the Learning Home. And also we're looking at actually having a skills conference in South Africa in July. This is still a dream and up in the air or in the cloud. And hopefully some of you guys who are here will be affording us, the opportunity to come to South Africa and visit us. What we have also done is, as I mentioned earlier on, one of the relevant areas linked to Commitment 8, if you still remember what I mentioned earlier, is how do we enhance principles to run colleges well. And what we've embarked on is a principal exchange program where there's lots of shadowing, where we afford principals in South Africa to go and spend time in the UK for up to 2 weeks at an institute, finding out things that could be relevant for them. And we also do the same thing for UK principals coming to South Africa. And then one of the things we're still exploring and are interested in, I've spoken individually to some of the guys, and one of the questions that I've been asking, I think, is how much are the colleges doing in terms of improving quality? There are many ways of improving quality, and we believe one of the ways is actually engaging on this particular project called World Skills. I don't know if you are familiar with it, but World Skills is an establishment. It was established about 45 years ago, and it brings young people from various countries around the world to compete in the skills. So this enhances quite quality. It takes 2 years for a young person to prepare for this competition. And in order for that to happen, you need commitment from industry, which is why if you look at the South African model, we've encouraged all these colleges to have a player or a partner in the industry, be it cars, be it engineering. And then the other element as well, which we're trying to explore, is enterprise. Not so easy to explore, but enterprise is an area that we're interested in, especially when we talk of employability. Because employability is not just about someone getting a job, it's also about how then do young people create